All right. Going live. Boom. Banners. The truth is out there. All right, everyone. Hey, thanks for joining me on today's live program. It's our second live stream. We are going to be talking about the X Files. I got Thrash Pondo Pons waiting for me here in studio, and he's going to be coming up here in just a moment. First of all, I want to get some preliminary stuff out of the way. If you are, if you are here, let me know. Let's do a little shout out going on. I'm going to be doing some live stuff here. And, we're going to talk about the X Files, but we're not just going to be talking about the X Files. We're going to be, I'm open. I'm going to let people decide where to go on this. So I don't see anybody here yet. But Thrash Bondo's here, of course. But you are part of the program. I'm talking about guests. So yes, one of my all-time favorite shows. But before we get into today's program, please do me the honor of liking, subscribing, hitting the bell notification. And also, I've got this really cool thing right now, and that is I have a tip jar over at Retro Serial on Patreon. And if you want to go over there, I've created my first tier over on Patreon. And if you want to go over there and donate, I am going to send the link right now. And that is awesome. Okay, so with that out of the way, I'm going to bring Thrash Pondo Pons. First time I've ever done this. Let's see how well this works. Hey, how are you?
Well, you tell me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you pretty good, actually.
Really? Yeah, we did some tweaking on the speakers, so I'm glad you can hear me. Good.
Sounds good, actually.
Good to be on board.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have people watching later, I'm sure. But for right now, it's just you and me. So I like that backdrop you got once again. The fake books.
I'm trying to center it, but, yeah.
Yeah, you faked me out with those books the first time I saw it. I was just like, oh my gosh, there's some books there. So it's like, he's a book nerd like me.
Oh, I am, but if it falls over, unfortunately, it won't crush me. If those are real books, I'd be,
yeah, it'd be pretty bad.
Yeah, this is a belated Father's Day present for my wife, so I could do these sort of posts.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like it.
Well, cool, Thrash Pondo. I'm glad you could be joining me on the program. And we're going to be doing a retro review. I don't know how long it's going to be. It's going to be just as long as till we're done talking. That's it. Unless people jump on with some different Q&A and stuff like that, I think we're going to be just talking about the show. So, were you a fan of the X-Files?
I was a fan, but it's kind of an interesting story. I wasn't a fan right from the get-go. I kicked in probably around season 3, maybe even season 4, which is funny because I was watching Fox right from the get-go. In fact, I used to watch the earlier programs that night, then I would tune up by the time the X-Files came on. Ironically, if my memory serves, it was my wife who got me into it. She's always been into police procedural programs, and X-Files fits that template.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about it. It's not just an anthology series. It holds water as a cop show, just a paranormal cop show. And she started watching it, fell in love with it, because she liked some of that paranormal stuff as well, and says, "You're going to start watching this show with me." And I'm like, okay. And it became one of our weekly things. We always watch the X-Files on our date night, as it were.
Well, it came on Friday nights for a long time.
I keep saying Sunday. I meant Friday. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, did you say Sunday? It may have switched. I didn't look that up yet. I know originally it came on Friday nights, and I was a huge fan. Probably, maybe even 3 or 4 episodes in, I was a fan.
Really? Yeah. Really from the get-go.
I was there from the get-go. It was rare when I actually missed an episode. I watched, I don't remember them all right now, but I watched most all of them as they came out. and there it was rare when I would miss one because it was Friday night and I was kind of home on Friday night, and it was in the '90s. And it being in the '90s, I'm kind of a young adult at that time, and but I got married like pretty young. So by the time I was 21, I was married, and so I wasn't out a lot, but TV was pretty kind of thin for me during those years, early years. But X Files was one of them that I made time for. So I really enjoyed it. Well, let's get into some facts about X Files. Speaking about this though, one of the things that you mentioned was a cop show, but a psychic drama cop, or a paranormal cop show. And do you know of another paranormal cop show that came out later? Do you know?
I know one came out earlier.
Oh, what is it?
Yeah, it was called Kolchak the Night Stalker with Darren McGavin, and it was originally, and forgive me if I get some of these details wrong. It's been many years, but originally there was a movie with Darren McGavin as this sort of gritty detective, and he's trying to uncover the facts behind a serial killer. And spoiler alert ahead, so do be careful. It turns out the serial killer is a vampire.
Oh.
And that's the premise of this movie. It was so well received, and he was so great as like this sort of gritty detective type that they actually turned it into a short-lived TV series. And it was the same situation. He would get a case which he would think would be like a normal homicide or whatever, and it would turn out that there was a rat man in the basement of this bank, or some type of alligator people in the sewers. It was always some type of cryptid or paranormal activity.
What year
predated?
What year did that come out? What years was it on? Do you know?
In the 70s, I would guess 74 to 76, sometime around there. That would be my educated guess off the top of my head.
They also had another kind of paranormal. Do you remember Moonlight? Remember that show, Moonlight? It came around about the same time as X Files.
I don't. I don't remember.
It was a cop show but it was involving a vampire, basically. But it was like a vampire cop show that kind of crossed over there. No, the one that I'm thinking of that kind of like, I did like it at first, but it wore on me real quickly. And I honestly get, something's got to be really good these days for me to watch. Not even these days, but back in like the late 90s and 2000s. It had to be really good for me to watch because I got sick of the tropes kind of quickly. And but it was Fringe. Remember Fringe?
I do recall it. I think it was all on nights when I had to work, but I remember people talking about it. I do remember the show.
Yeah.
Short-lived show, but I remember it.
Yeah. No, I think it had like 8 seasons, actually.
I think I'm thinking of something else then. So maybe no. Why don't you tell me about it? Because maybe I don't remember it. What was Fringe then?
Well, it was. There was a scientist called Walter, and it was about his son too. It's not ringing any bells, or no? But it was about consciousness, and then they had to solve these crimes kind of as a result of. They had to solve these crimes kind of as a result of this paranormal world that they were living in. And solve mysteries, not necessarily crimes, but mysteries. Like the birds would be dying, and then they'd have to go and find out why the birds are dying and sew up the time gap thing. And I don't know. It was interesting. I watched it for a couple seasons, and I got done with it pretty quickly. Go ahead.
Was that set in the Boston area? Because this is starting to ring a bell.
Yeah, I believe so.
All right, this is ringing a bell. I think I've watched so much TV over the last 30, 40 years, sometimes things cross over, but I think I do kind of remember this one vaguely. I don't think I watched it much, but I'm starting to remember it.
To me, it was definitely kind of an X-Files ripoff show with a little bit more science to it, a little bit more fringe science to it. But all right, well, we're here to talk about the X-Files. it premiered in let's see, I had it right here. I had it memorized.
September of '93.
Yes, September 10th of 1993, and I don't believe I was there for the premiere. It had 24, but I mean I was into it really quick. It had 24 episodes, and the tagline here, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, is "The truth is out there." Yes, so 24 episodes. There's some highlights I want to hit. I want to talk about our favorite episodes, because you and I have just both recently been through it. I want to talk about the opening and then the last one too. I want to talk about those two specifically, but whatever we want to go into after that's fine with me. So why don't you start if you want to start, or if you want me to start, I don't care.
Sure.
The opening episode, did it catch you right away, like when you first watched it, or was it like re-magical again? I know you said you didn't catch into it till season 3, but as you're rewatching, what are you thinking about it?
Well, full disclosure, as I was watching it, and remember the pilot is basically a 2-part episode. When I'm watching it, I don't know if I'd ever seen it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, because I came in around season 3, maybe season 4, and I saw some issues from before that. But as I'm watching it, I'm like, I really don't remember this. So it was truly a new experience for me. I'm watching it fresh from the get-go. And it was interesting because, I'm familiar with all the characters, but not their introduction. And it was so interesting seeing Fox and Scully as two completely unknowns, completely unknown to each other, not really trusting each other, downright standoffish. In the beginning, Scully thinks Mulder's nuts, and Mulder thinks Scully's his babysitter. So it really takes that first couple of episodes for them to really click as the iconic team they've become. And let's face it, if you were to do pairings of the best cop partners in American TV history, they've got to be in the top 10.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure Friday and Gannon would be number 1, and Andy and Barney would be up there, and there's a couple from the whole Law and Order series, but Scully and Mulder are on there. They have to be, and so it was really nice to see that in origin form. And I really thought sometimes pilots have an annoying tendency, and I don't know why. Maybe they're afraid to give up too much in the opening to set too high an expectation. But that opening double pilot, I thought was excellent. It could have almost stood up as a feature film on its own. So I thought they really got you with quality right from the get-go. And there's a really cute walk-on by Seth Green as a stoner teenager that I thought was priceless.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good too. I was in the second episode, but I guess it's kind of a 2-parter. Is what you're saying. So yeah, that was the second episode. Yeah, I mean, she's introduced as a character to kind of keep an eye on Mulder. And what's interesting is the actress Julian Anderson, nobody actually wanted her except the director. Nobody wanted her. Like, seriously, everybody said this is not the right person. I don't think she's going to do well. Test audiences aren't going to like her. They thought, there was one person, and I believe it was the director, as I recall, who was rooting for her, who said, nope, she's in. I like her. I think I made the call. She's in. And it turned out to be, pretty good. It turned out to be a very good decision.
Smart play.
Yeah.
What was the reason for that? Was she considered unapproachable? Or something?
I don't know the reason for that exactly, just other than the fact that I saw it on one of those 10 things you didn't know about shows that are here. And I don't think, because she's not really, she's seriously one of the most beautiful women, but she kind of redefined beauty. Like at that time, when you're looking at females and female leads and girls who are on the hit list and are the it list, and you have Fox, which is still fairly new, struggling to be to compete, although they did have some successes at this point. I think they were kind of looking for like a Cindy Crawford or something like that. They were looking for that kind of a wowsy eye candy to entice audiences so that the audience would be there and listen, would be there and pay attention. And she's, the girl next door, kind of a little bit mousy type of stringy red hair kind of thing. But hey, you don't know how badly, how much that appeals to males, especially.
Some females too. Kate McKinnon said that was her first crush.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's funny that she wasn't considered an obvious choice, because it's my understanding when she was being conceptualized, they used Jodie Foster's character from Silence of the Lambs as sort of a template. And I thought she hit the nail right on the head. She made it her own. She wasn't doing a carbon copy impression. Yeah. But I thought she really hit that Clarice icon very well.
Vibe, at least the vibe, for sure.
Exactly, very much so. So, well, I'm glad you got the part. I can't picture anyone else doing it.
I can't either. And of course, I'm repeating something. Forgive me, but I'm repeating something that I heard. And I'm just assuming that the person that I heard it from checked it out. And, a lot of times, and I didn't look in the comments, but a lot of times if somebody says something that's not true, the comment section kind of reveals that pretty quickly. So... So
people love to fact check us, don't they? That's why I'm always hesitant with my facts,
And quite honestly, it's okay with me. I don't mind if they fact check us at all. It's actually pretty cool.
That gets the conversation going. I mean, seriously, that's what actually makes us interesting. I mean, I myself love to, say, "Oh, did you know this?" or "Oh, actually that." Sometimes that's what actually gets the dialogue lively.
Yeah, it gets it going. So moving on from the pilot episode, what are some of the episodes that kind of stand out to you, or what are some of the themes, or so I've said this before, and this is true of X-Files, and you don't notice it when you're watching television, especially on a weekly program. You just don't notice it on a weekly program because it comes out every week. So you have 7 days to kind of forget about it. But it does, I love the program. Don't misunderstand me, but this is common. It gets tropey quick. And the trope is Mulder's right, Scully's going to question him, everybody's going to question him, and then it turns out to be a right mystery that kind of doesn't get quite resolved, and the carrot is always just out of reach for their characters. But that's kind of what I've noticed. That's just a little bit of a trope that kind of gets replayed over and over again in a lot of shows. But I loved it. I loved season 1. But I'm going on here. But go ahead. You go ahead on what you think about it and everything. So.
Well, just to speak to the template for a second, because I actually did a post on this on my actual channel where I discuss how all great U.S. science fiction from this time period is effectively The Fugitive with a sci-fi backdrop. Now, X-Files doesn't quite fit that template because it's not one man's story and his trials and tribulations. But like The Fugitive, The X-Files is definitely an anthology series. That is to say, each story could stand up, at least in the first season. It alters a little down the road. We'll get to that in future seasons. But in the first season, each episode is microcosmic. So it's sort of the continuing adventures of Fox and Scully. And you are right, it's not that she plays Watson to his Holmes, but she's the empiricist who's always looking for the logical answer, and Fox is the cryptologist. And in a show about the paranormal, yes, it does turn out that he is right more often than not. So it's like my wife, when she talks about Twilight Zone, and she refers to it as irony theater, because the ending is always going to be ironic. So you might as well call it the Fox show, because Fox is always right. They're having some notable exceptions. But I will tell you, one of the things I noticed was, in an attempt to keep the show from getting too tropey, well, you wouldn't have said that back then, but now, each show, a lot of them were about the whole alien visitation, naturally, because, and we can get into Fox's backstory in a little bit, but one of the key points is he always believed his sister was abducted by aliens.
Right.
So aliens and alien abduction is certainly a very, very, very common thread. But there are others. They look for cryptids. They look for ghosts. They look for artificial intelligence. So they never painted themselves into a corner. But,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I totally agree. I agree that they didn't paint themselves into a corner. They had a really wide variety of palettes. It's just that it was, it's a strange thing that happens, and then this person says yes, and this person says no, and then and it's a boy girl kind of thing too. Another show that was kind of like that came out later, which I was a huge fan of, came out in the 2000s, the 7s and 9s and stuff like that. The aughts was The Mentalist. I was a big fan of The Mentalist, and I think that that The Mentalist patterned itself to some degree after the X-Files, except for they weren't doing paranormal stuff. But it was the same thing. And honestly, first of all, I didn't notice it that much when I was watching it as a kid or as a young adult, because I was kind of a young adult. I didn't really just, and the other thing that happened is it comes on every week, so you kind of forget. But when you get to watch these shows that were made for weekly digestion back to back, they start to come out a little bit more. So let's move on from there, and let's talk about some of our favorite episodes or facts about our favorite episodes. One of the things I was impressed with right off the bat was how well the stories are crafted. I think they're great stories. And the other thing is that we even get a reoccurring monster in the first season, which was one of my one of my two favorite episodes. Was the genetic mutation guy who hibernates and then he comes out and eats 5 livers every once in a while. So what do you think about that? Tell me what you think. What were some of your favorite episodes, or however?
I'll speak to that one because you brought up, and I did have some notes on that one. I remember I'm always talking about how it's microcosmic. That's one of the exceptions. Tooms comes back. In fact, the second episode is called Tooms, but I like how it's originally crafted. Initially, they think they're looking for a serial killer. Only the shtick with this serial killer is it's over decades. It's 39 years in between attacks or something like that.
Yeah.
Because he hibernates for X amount of time, and so a paranormal serial killer. I mean, that's a pretty good gimmick, if you ask me. And I thought the actor who played him, I thought was very, very convincing as this sort of, cryptid cannibal. It was very nicely done. Also, the guy who was in the first episode, Donald something or other. He's really good. He started out, I don't know if you remember, did you watch a lot of MTV back in the 80s?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Later 80s, but yeah.
He had a recurring shtick. He played this know-it-all New York cab driver that would always, it was modeled after Robert De Niro, Taxi Driver. But his thing was he was always talking about videos on MTV.
Was it Randy of the Redwoods?
No, it was like Randy of the Redwoods. Only this guy was a New York cab driver. I believe the character's name was Paul Sullivan, I believe.
Okay.
And I've seen him in many things since. He had his own show for a while called Grounded for Life.
Yeah. It's not the same. Is it the same actor who plays Randy of the Redwoods, or no?
No, that's two different actors.
Okay, all right.
This guy was he played the cabbie in the MTV spots, but he's also been in Sons of Anarchy. He's done he's a great guy, but he had that one episode of X-Files, and one of the things I like is they managed to get a lot of really cool people to do guest starring spots. So Tooms and the precursor to Tooms were, I thought, very excellent episodes. Donald Loja, I think his name, I just found it, but I can't read it. I'm getting a lot of glare from my glasses, so I had to take them off. So I'm trying to read with my glasses on.
That's okay. That's okay. What are some other episodes that you liked about this? And before we get into the final episode,
One thing
um,
one episode
are
that I really liked was it was called Gender Bender, and I thought it was a very interesting premise. They're investigating young people getting killed in clubs. So again, as always, they start out like it could be a very mundane, although tragic premise. They are FBI agents, and it involves a mystery. One thing I don't know if you remember, this was a Canadian show. It was filmed, I believe, in the Vancouver area. So a lot of because it was set in America, a lot of the shows are actually set in either Canada, the Pacific Northwest, to basically allow for the fact that all the background shots look like the Canadian Rockies. And this adventure takes them to my home state, Massachusetts, and a colony of, they look like they're Amish.
oh yeah,
Yeah, you remember one? There was no Amish communities in Massachusetts. There were Shakers. There's differences, but
yeah,
it's that community of people who they're from a different century for religious purposes.
yeah,
And I'm gonna have to say, spoiler alert. Turns out that they're aliens,
yeah,
and they're actually living in a manner that they think will keep them under the radar, not realizing it's actually causing them to make spectacles of themselves.
right,
What I loved about it was one of the aliens gives the game away because he's looking to have relations with humans.
yeah,
And that reminded me of two things. That reminded me of speculation for I don't know if you watch Ancient Aliens at all, but they talk about the fallen angels being actually aliens who decided to stay on Earth and have relations with the Earthlings, and that
yeah,
caused them to fall from grace. And another thing, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's the subplot in Rocky Horror, and any episode that could do a crossover between a biblical reference and Rocky Horror, that's no small task.
yeah,
How do you reconcile those two?
yeah,
The premise itself about aliens living like pre-industrial peoples to stay under the radar, that's also from a very good episode of Star Trek, one of my favorites, The Errand of Mercy, where
uh-huh.
it turns out they're actually very, very advanced aliens, but they act like they're primitive to sort of stay under the radar of the Federation and Klingon Empire. So I
You know,
thought that
there was a episode of the. Oh, I can't remember if it was Amazing Stories. Remember Amazing Stories? And,
vividly.
it was either Amazing Stories or the newer episodes of the Twilight Zone. I don't remember which one.
They were concurrent.
And what happened was this guy got caught in some type of thing where he woke up in the future, and it was a utopia, and they were advanced. But what they decided to do was they decided to get rid of all technology. So he thought he woke up in the past, but he actually woke up in the future,
Yeah.
and they could travel through mind rather than, so they didn't need technology in any way, and they actually got rid of it because it was a hindrance and destroyed society. So they decided that they were going to get rid of all technology. I don't know if you remember that episode, but it reminds me of that. Yeah, I like that episode. I like how Mulder follows him down into the cave and how Scully almost gets taken advantage of. It's difficult not to remember that. And then, of course, you do have the reference to the Nephilim in Genesis 6.
Thank you. I couldn't quite remember the reference, but yes, thank you.
Yeah. I know Ancient Aliens does a lot of that. There's actually a link I'll send you on. Well, I don't know if you're interested or not. It's more on the other side of it, but I can send you a video on Ancient Aliens. It's like 3 hours long. It's actually really good. I really enjoyed it.
Please.
And I don't know if you've ever listened. This is going to get up on something else, but I don't know if it's still a channel here. They switched over to Vimeo, but it might still be here. But it's a channel called Fringe Pop 321 by Michael Heiser.
I'm writing that down.
Okay, he goes through some very interesting stuff from a biblical perspective.
I'm not familiar with it, but I'll write it down.
Yeah, write it down. It's interesting. And not to get too religious, but he does a podcast called the Naked Bible Podcast, which I'm kind of a fan of. I have my but the Genesis 6 thing that comes up later in the episodes as well. Like later, they have somebody that has 6 fingers, and they talk about Genesis 6 in later episodes. That was one of my favorite ones. The one that I kind of had a soft spot for was Rollin. Did you see?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was. Pardon me. It reminded me of Flowers for Algernon.
Oh yeah, kind of, yeah.
I do remember that one. That was a very good episode.
Yeah, it's kind of had a special spot in my heart, and of course, he's a killer.
Well, this is the X-Files.
But I did
happy ending.
Yeah, I did like that episode, and then what was the other? There was a couple episodes. I mean, they were all really good episodes. But Danny Staten is in the house. Danny, thank you, Danny. Awesome.
We have a listener.
Finally, okay. But let's see. The episode that I really liked was that episode with the secretary, and she was really close to her boss, but her boss got murdered. And
yes, that's
yeah, I'm a cigarette smoking man fan myself. I do hope the Smoker Man. I like the Smoker Man.
Is that Shadows? Was Shadows the one about the secretary being protected by the ghost of her boss?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And then, but I did really like that episode. The problem is when anything paranormal starts to happen, Fox is the only one around to see it. You know what I mean? Fox, and then whoever it is. And that happened in that episode.
It's like hello my honey, hello my baby. Only the one guy sees it,
Right, exactly. And when they're trying to, I think it was his brother that murdered him, and his brother was taking over the company, and then they were locked in the office, and the ghost wouldn't let anybody in or let anybody out, but they found the secret file that revealed that his brother had murdered him. But I kind of like the idea of somebody looking out for you from beyond the grave, and I did like the idea of that girl, she'd get in these bad situations, but then she'd have somebody looking out for her. So what were some of your other favorite episodes? We wrap it up or whatever. We talk about the last episode too, but I don't care. Sure. We can go as long as we want to go.
I had an affinity for Ice. I thought that one was very put together. I liked the sort of how it borrowed from Who Goes There, otherwise known as The Thing, because that's a theatrical film. I like the idea about a group of scientists being stuck in the middle of nowhere and having to combat an unknown. I like the fact that it turned out not to be an alien, but just this sort of, not even a cryptid. It's just like a very primitive form of life, but it's just been frozen in the ice for tens of thousands of years.
Yeah.
And so when it was released, it was sort of, again, an unknown to the equation, which is something which I think could possibly happen. I mean, as the ice, the polar caps are melting, we don't know what kind of bugs and stuff might be frozen in there. Might release some type of virus,
right?
Or bacteria we haven't been exposed to in tens of thousands of years. So I thought it was a really neat premise. I also like the fact that when it infests people, it's not like a brain vampire. It's not like the Puppet Masters where it takes you over completely. Mm-hmm. Just its influence just sort of made you angry and paranoid. Yeah. So you're still you, but you become a more combative you, which of course adds to the tension because rather than work together and solve a problem, they're at each other's throats. I thought it was just very well put together.
Yeah, and it did borrow a little bit from that one movie. It seemed like, because they were all isolated and in a snowy place, and there was this creature, and they didn't know who was the creature. The creature did. What's the name of that darn movie with Kurt Russell?
The movie is the Thing.
That's right. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
Thing.
And it's based on the short story, or the novella, I should say, Who Goes There by Joseph P. Campbell.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories, as you probably deduced by this stage.
Right. And here I go off the topic again, but did you see Tomorrow War yet?
I haven't. I don't get to the theaters.
It's on Amazon Prime, so I don't know.
It is?
Yeah.
I'll check it. I haven't seen it.
It's a little bit that premise. I don't want to give it away because it just came out, but that premise is little War of the Worlds. Let's just say that. Okay, so War of the Worlds. Guess what? The aliens were already here, right? Kind of a thing. They were underground. They came up. Kind of a deal. So, but that's what that's what you were talking about with the ice, how it kind of melted and came out. Now, what's interesting about that episode is, do you remember that you saw that thing going with the dog, like in
Yeah, under the fur. Yeah.
Right. A long time ago, like maybe at least 10 years ago, if not 15 years ago, I saw behind the scenes with the X-Files about how they did what they did and stuff.
Ooh.
And CGI was still kind of new, and so that was one of the shows that they said we use half CGI and we use half old school special effects. And they were showing how they did that, how they just dragged a piece of thing through a fur that wasn't really on a dog. It just, they'd show the dog, then they'd clip to that, and then they just dragged it through and put the film on the camera on the fur, and then pulled that thing through so it looked like it was being pulled through by the dog. So that was an interesting point there in time. It was really interesting, for special effects, because it was right. I mean, they were still using old school special effects, and new special effects by computer animation was still coming out. And I think they did a good job. Good job. Speaking of Mulder always being the one, remember in the second one, he goes to the base and he sees the flying thing, but then they wipe his mind clean, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't know there. And somebody keeps destroying the evidence. Somebody always keeps destroying the evidence. Go ahead.
And of course, in the first season, we see the introduction of the cigarette-smoking man.
Yes.
In fact, you're about to talk about the final episode, so I don't want to give the game away, because one of the most devastating conflicts in that first season comes to a very dramatic close at the end between the cigarette-smoking man and, of course, I hesitate to call him the good guy. He's sort of Captain Exposition, but we're never really sure what his end game is. Deep Throat.
Yeah.
So it's we really see the cigarette-smoking person as an able character, which, of course, he's developed far more later, but he's a very interesting character, but a very seedy one, and he's introduced here. And I almost fell out of my chair, because I remember Skinner as always being a good guy who has Mulder and Scully's back, but he's kind of a jerk to them in his original introduction. I was like, wow, I didn't realize that. Good point.
Okay, so let's get to the final episode. All right, final episode. Well, I mean, back then you watch the final episode and you don't know if they're coming back for next season, because they shut the X-Files down. No, but of course, Deep Throat dies, and he was the guy at the very beginning of the program who told Scully to keep an eye on Mulder, and so we say goodbye to him. So that was unfortunate. He gets shot. And that episode, they are dealing with an altered life form, some DNA that Scully says hasn't been around for a long time, since before humans were born, but somehow by sciencey technology, it gets reintroduced into a group of people who are being genetically modified. And this person is impervious to, well, he's not impervious, but he's got much more resilience. Let's just say that. And the show starts out with him running from the cops, beating a few cops, getting shot in the back, and being able to dive into water, hold his breath underwater for a long time until the cops stop looking for him. And then Mulder and Scully are looking for him too, and they don't know why. They just get a tip that they need to investigate this. Anyway, turns out he's a mutant. That's what it turns out to be. I hate to give it away. Yeah, he's a hybrid. Okay, so what are your thoughts on it?
Well, the most important thing that I found from the series finale is it finally what galvanizes the partnership between Fox and Scully. When when Mulder is his kids was abducted because you don't think aliens. When Mulder is incarcerated by the sort of secret government group, Scully risks not only her career but her life to get the alien DNA and bring it. In fact, she doesn't even want to let Deep Throat make the drop. She's like, no, this one's on me. And
Yeah.
there's that really powerful scene where Deep Throat is like, no, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Let me handle the exchange. And has to actually threaten her to get her to give up the alien DNA to give it to the opposition. But you really see that from now on, yeah, it's going to be the two of them against the world, and literally it is in future seconds.
That's the one where in the finally she comes around. She comes around and says, I'm a woman of science. And it is the whole, so speaking of Jodie Foster, where we started, it is kind of like Contact in a way, it is the whole faith versus science kind of thing, or eyewitness versus empirical witness. I don't like saying faith versus science. I don't believe that dichotomy at all, but I do believe in the difference between empirical verifiability and witness verifiability. So, you can tell me what you ate this morning, but I have to trust you as a person, and I have to figure out whether or not you're lying or not lying or whatever. But there's no one around. There's no picture, unless it was video. There's no picture. You're just telling me. So it's verified only by the witness to it. And then the question is, does the witness tell the truth? And now she has verifiable empirical evidence that she now believes that Mulder is telling the truth.
I love the Contact reference, by the way. That is like a really good shtick, a good analogy.
Right, yeah. Well, cool. Well, do you have anything else to add? I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. I think
we got one.
We got a few people drop in from time to time, and we'll probably get a few more people who
down the road.
Yeah, down the road. You can contact you at Thrash Pondo Ponds, and we're trying to get you a little bit more sleek and updated so that you can get that, get the people catching the eye with those thumbnails and stuff like that. We need to get you working on that. But you have a great channel. Really, you have a really good channel. I like what you have to say. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you. I love yours. Was that your 100th subscriber, or was that like 102? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I know I was, because you were just getting over that 100 mark when
I
joined. So in fact, I think I was actually right before 100. But anyway, I love your channel too. You know that. You got some great stuff on your channel, and I can't get enough.
So Danny says, next time don't do this while wrestling is on. Is that what it was? I did this at the same time last Monday, and it was super interactive. Everybody was on here, and I don't know, maybe it's just the topic. I don't know. Who knows? I'll try some other stuff.
You and I could wrestle, and I would blend the two.
Virtual wrestling, of course. Unless you want to fly here or fly me out there. So
we'll meet in Missouri.
The great wrestling state.
There was one more thing I wanted to mention, because this one blew my mind when I was watching it.
Okay.
Getting back to Gender Bender. One of the actors who played the club kids, one who survives, is played by Nicholas Lea, who he plays a character named Michael, he's in the car with the girl. She goes to kill him. He escapes. And I go, darn, he looks familiar. So I looked him up on IMDb. He was Alex Krycek in later seasons. He comes back as a villain.
Oh, okay. All
he
right.
plays literally, not figuratively, he plays literally the one-armed man of the series.
Yeah. I get the reference. I get the
I
reference.
knew you would. I don't know if everyone else will, so I knew you would. Trust me.
All right, everybody. Well, look, I'm here. I've got two watching. If anybody wants to ask any questions, I'll stay on for just another minute longer. But if you don't, hey, that's good. We're all good. This will be up for people to watch anytime. Let me remind everybody once again, I do have my first tier. It's just a tip jar. It's over at Patreon at Retro Serial. It's $3. So that's as low as they recommended. $3, just you don't get anything special with that. Believe me, you don't. It's just hey, we like what you're doing. We want to see you continue to do it. It's just a tip jar. And if you want to join that, that's great. I am going to be adding a couple of more tiers. I'm going to be adding 3 tiers, all based on cereal. Okay, so there's going to be like the honeycomb hideout tier, and the cinnamon toast tier, and cinnamon toast crunch tier, and the tricks tier. I haven't decided on which cereals, but
Captain Crunch tier.
The Captain Crunch. I might do that one. I might do peanut butter Captain Crunch. Was one of my favorite ones. And they will have like special things. Each tier will have something special. You can like early release on episodes and stuff like that. The problem that I have is first of all, this isn't full time for me. I'm in ministry part time, and I have another part time job as well. So it takes me a while. And the other problem that I have, the Sugar Crisp tier. Superplex says the Sugar Crisp tier.
Sugar Crisp?
The other problem that I have is that I'm seriously not technologically advanced. So like anytime I go, no, I'm not. Everything.
I'm a caveman next to you.
Listen, everything that I've done on this channel so far has been I did not do any of it. It's been trial and it's been trial and error. I've just looked it up as I kind of went along. Georgia Eris, hi folks. Hey, how you doing? Awesome. Thank you for joining us, taking questions now. We talked about the X-Files for quite a while. If you have any questions on the X-Files, season 1 or any season, or if you just want to ask any questions at all, go ahead.
It's the brain from planet Arius.
Arius. Yes. I don't understand the reference.
It's an old schlock sci-fi film from the 70s. It was a giant brain from another universe that came to wreak havoc. Hey, Zerplex is here. Hey, we're going to start getting people all of a sudden.
That's okay. Hey, I got it. Look, tonight was my night to do dinner, and I've got food in there I've got to put away, and the longer I don't have to do that, that's fine with me. So you guys jump on, ask any questions you want to ask.
Please.
or direct us to anything you want to go.
I'll even give answers if possible. I'll make something up if I don't know.
Did you like Robert Patterson? He's the go ahead.
He's the guy, probably best known from the Terminator movies. And I will tell you, I didn't object to him as much as so many other people did. I did miss Fox and was psyched when he came back, but I thought he did a very competent job filling the shoes, which was no small task. Fox is one of the most beloved characters on the Fox network at that point. So I'll give him a qualified thumbs up.
Never saw a single episode with him in it. Not one. I'm sorry. I think it was you, Superplex, who actually last week when we were talking about this a little bit, when I was talking about everything under the sun. I think that you asked me when you thought that X-Files jumped the shark, and I said right before that guy came on. Right before, so I stopped watching actually during that time. So anyway,
can I get back to that question?
Says,
all right, go ahead.
It just says, hi, hi, having much time opportunity to watch. That's okay. That's all right. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you were here. I thought he was good too. Good.
I will tell you, we were talking about jumping the shark, and I thought that was an excellent question that came up in the last opportunity. And with me, I thought the black oil season, remember there was that one season where they were looking into the whole black oil, and it became every week was the black oil, and well, what's the black oil doing, and how do we combat it? And I thought the running thread got a little much. I like the fact the X-Files tended to be microcosmic with only some crossover. And when you did an entire series on this one running thread, I thought that got a little old. But ironically, they were doing it to try to bring life back into the show. They were trying to give it something that would keep people watching. They did that with another of my favorite science fiction shows, Sliders, where originally they were all microcosmic, but then they brought in the Cro-Mags as a running enemy, and I thought that somehow detracted from the show.
Yeah, so, I was a big Sliders fan too, until they started changing all the characters.
That too, that didn't help. They even brought his brother in. It was his actual brother.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you can tell that it's his actual brother. They found a really good. But I loved Sliders, though. I mean, I was a huge Sliders fan, quite honestly.
Great show.
The whole Sci-Fi Channel was great.
They never answered the question of the aliens were behind a lot of the mysterious. You're right. They didn't. They never did answer that.
And that was.
I think they were unrelated.
I think that was part of the problem with it, and why it kind of faded out. And even the two movies, they had two movies, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, we never know what happened to his sister.
You know, remember, the truth is out there. There may be more than one truth. There could be a couple of different truths, though.
Well, there could be more than one. There could be a compounding answer.
All right.
Yeah, there could be a compounding answer. So, I don't. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. It could be a compounding of things.
How about the Lone Gunman spinoff? I gave the Lone Gunman spinoff a chance. This is how.
Oh yeah, I do remember this.
Yeah. It was the three guys who were his sort of support network. They actually gave him information. And each one had a really interesting. It was sort of like Big Bang Theory if they were ghost hunters.
Yeah, right.
Each one had their own little quirky personality, and they were great together. And I did try it, but I heard this example with a different person. I'm going to use it for the Lone Gunman. The Lone Gunman worked best as sort of a creme brulee. If you less is more. If they were enhancing an episode, they were great. They didn't really have enough energy to hold an entire series themselves. Think of it this way. A good marinara makes a pasta dish, but you wouldn't want to sit down in your bowl of marinara sauce now, would you? It would be too overpowering. So I did like The Lone Gunman, but I could see why they couldn't carry an audience for an independent show.
Yeah, I think that too. It just wasn't strong enough to carry it on for a show. And I get the marinara reference, but I would have used the chips and salsa reference myself. No, I'm.
Yeah, too much salsa will really do me in. I saw the
Georgia, yeah, I saw it too. I loved it. Had two copies of it. Actually,
before I saw the movie, I bought a copy.
Yeah, and that was actually when the first time they became almost romantic. Like, remember when they were going to kiss?
Which is really awkward because I always had my suspicions that we were going to find out that in fact she was his sister. So I was really hoping against that.
Ooh, a little Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker thing going on there.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. He likes Italian.
I work in an Italian restaurant. I have to like Italian food.
Is that where you work? Is it an Italian restaurant?
I bartend in an Italian restaurant. Love a nice Chianti.
Yeah, I thought both movies were. The second movie is really good too. I mean, they really do know how to tell a story over there. They know how to set it up. They know how the scenes to make you just interested enough, and you just go, oh wow, I'm really interested in this. So you saw it in theaters. I believe I saw the first one in theaters, and the second one I didn't see until after it came out. And unfortunately, I also haven't seen the last two seasons of it as well. The 2008 and then the 2016 season. I need to see it. I was a big fan. So I just needed to see it. I thought the last movie they did was really good, quite honestly. I thought it was really good. So, all right.
But you're right. We never do find out about his sister, and when you open with something like that, you really should pay it off at the end.
You should. You should
really
have
should.
like an exposition as to what happened. The chance that she's still alive is, probably not great, but maybe she is.
I mean, even Speed Racer found out that Racer X was his brother. It's like you really got to have that payoff at the end.
Yeah, for sure. All righty. Well, we're going to sign off here. We get some more questions. If there's some more questions, that's fine. If there's not, we're going to sign off. And thanks for tuning in and making this episode what it is.
Thanks for joining us.
I love talking to people. I love talking with people online as well. And these chat comments, keep them coming. They just kind of spin us off. Next week, I'm going to be not Monday, but I'm going to be on Tuesday, and I'm going to be doing a Q&A just so everybody knows. And then the week after that, I think you and I are going to do again another one on Monday, and we're going to talk about our book versus movies. So to get a kind of
and this game or just a retrospective?
Kind of a Q&A on book versus movie on the
Gotcha.
3 that we've done so far, and see if there's anybody who has questions about the book versus movie. We've done 3 books so far. We've done what have we done?
Which is Dead of the Galaxy, Dune, and
Starship Trooper.
Starship Troopers.
All right.
That was a fun one.
Good night.
Oh, good night. Good night, gang. We'll see you soon.